Welcome to Silicon Valley Successes. On today's show, we have Patrick Murray. He's the co-founder and CEO of Noson, which is the parent company of OnAirParking, making parking ridiculously cheap while increasing their partners' bottom line. They saw a change with the introduction of rideshare and parking, and they decided to capitalize on this growing opportunity. We will learn about the vision and entrepreneur needs for handling threats to an industry on this week's episode of Silicon Valley Successes. Patrick, welcome to this week's episode of Silicon Valley Successes.
It's good to be here, Sean. I'm excited.
So, Patrick, first off, OnAirParking. Could you explain a little bit about the company and what it does to everyone at home?
Yeah, sure. So my wife and I actually recently used it. So, lived in the city for 5 years.
City, San Francisco.
City of San Francisco. Didn't have a car. It's so difficult to have a car in SF, as you know. So as soon as I got to San Francisco, I sold my car and I saved $200-300 a month for parking. Wait, I'm in the parking business. I shouldn't be telling people this. But so for a while, and it's fun to be the use case of the opposite side of things, right? Not to be using parking, but it's nice. So my family, I found a girl that I fell in love with. We ended up moving to the burbs, and recently we just bought a house. And now we're like 40 minutes away from San Francisco. Everything feels a little bit further away. And we have a car, right? And we have a car seat in the car. So instead of taking Uber or Lyft to the airport, a lot of times we like to park near the airport and then take a shuttle to the airport. And it has all of our bags. We have the car seat in our car whenever we're back. We don't need to worry about putting it in and out. So my wife and I recently were in Los Angeles this past weekend. And I went onto my app, OnAirParking, and purchased parking for $12.99 a day, right? So we were gone for 2 days.
You're going to have to stop right there. $12.99 a day for parking in LA.
In San Francisco.
Oh, in
SFO.
San Francisco.
Yep.
Wait, in San Francisco. So not
Yep.
$12 an hour, which for people globally might think I'm making that up, but San Francisco, parking here is literally $6 an hour, even more, some place $12. It's ridiculous.
Yep. $12.99 a day. It's real. So you get a free shuttle. So we went onto the app, purchased parking, got paired with Anza Parking, which is very close for everybody down in Silicon Valley. And you show up, you QR code, scan in. There's a valet attendant waiting for you. They helped us put our bags in. We brought our baby in with all of her stuff. And we were at the airport 15 minutes after we pulled up to the parking facility. You come back, you meet the shuttle where they dropped you off, and your car is waiting for you. Our car was waiting for us. We drive out of the gate, scan our QR code again, and we were on our way. So 2 days, I'm not the best at math, but $26 about, and an Uber from Marin costs about $60 or $70 each way. So we saved a ton of money by using our service, and especially with a baby now, it's a lot more convenient. So a little bit longer than a short summary of what our company does, but we sell highly discounted parking near airports, and you don't know where you're parking until after you make a purchase, which is how one of the many ways that we can get discounted rates for travelers.
So this company, how did you come up with the idea for it?
So I was in the parking industry previously, and I was at a previous startup, which we may talk about. So I had some experience with off-airport parking, but I have a mentor. And Brett, my mentor, has been in the industry for a long time. And something that everybody was starting to see 3 years ago whenever we started the company was Uber and Lyft were impacting parking. We called it the Uber effect. And some owners and operators, especially in like conversations at trade shows, wouldn't really share what was going on with their business, but everybody was losing like 20% a year, whereas revenues were going up. If people were being candid and real with each other, everybody was losing 20%. And you couldn't make sense of it at first, but then as you would talk to your old customers or your family and would all raise hands at industry events. How many people took an Uber or Lyft to the conference, either like, to the airport or from the airport to the conference? More and more hands have been going up. It's a real thing. So we saw this problem and also saw it as an opportunity, right? As our industry is transforming, how can we add value, right? So what we were looking at is just the empty spaces that are now on the market. So airport parking is one thing, city parking, cruise parking, it's all getting impacted. So we kind of just looked at this problem as spaces are not getting filled. How can we come in and add value and add more paying customers to these facilities, basically?
So you saw a problem develop in
Right.
its infancy based on this new technology and decided to capitalize on this kind of this other trend. Is that right?
Yeah, we saw it as an opportunity and a problem, right, where we can come in and actually probably expedite conversations that a lot of people were having in the parking industry for some time. Whenever business is good, people don't want to change much. But as a business is threatened, as the parking industry has been, I think everybody has been more open to innovation. So it's been really nice to propose some things that are just common practice in Silicon Valley, but maybe not for a parking facility in Texas. We're able to present our use case and typically get pilots moving fast. And then when our partners can see what kind of traffic we can bring in and how we're not taking users away from people that are already parking at their facilities, it's kind of a win-win for everybody. And it's one of the nice things about the Uber effect for parking.
And you said that you have a mentor. How did you go about finding a mentor, and how valuable has that been to your company?
It's priceless in value. But, like a lot of your guests on the show, going to industry events is needed, right? If you're diving into any industry, if you're trying to learn about something, which I was parking, showing up as quickly as possible to an industry event is a great way to meet people, right? And my business partner, Brett, and mentor actually always says, just show up, then you have to do something. Show up and then do something. So at the first conference I ever went to in parking, I just see this guy that looks like a boss in the industry, right? He's in shorts when everybody else is in suits, and there's like people presenting, and he's just on his phone kind of texting, and I'm like, this guy seems awesome, I need to meet him. So he actually introduced himself to me later. We became friends, we went to lunch. So I got lucky, but Brett would say at least I showed up, I was talking to people. But then we stayed connected, and, we would have a call every week, every other week, and I'd just fill him in on what was going on. This is whenever I was still at way.com, my previous startup. And slowly but surely, we just had a great relationship. And now he's not even just a mentor, he's my business partner at Noson. He's, basically we're 50-50 partners, and still talking all the time. But yeah, I would say, I got lucky, so showing up is a good thing, but people can be a little bit more assertive too. If you're looking for a mentor, see somebody you like, just say, hey, can I keep you in the loop? Maybe we can have a conversation every other week or whatever else. Make sure that you're following the advice that they give you too, that they know that you're not just asking them questions and then not actually following up on it. But a couple of those things could help.
So you said you were at another startup, and then you pivoted into this. How did you know it was time to leave that other startup and pursue this other path?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was probably there for 6 months longer than at the point where I knew it was probably time to move on. But it's feelings, right? We have feelings about people that we marry. We have feelings about people watching our kids, perhaps as a nanny or caretaker. You have feelings about something you're working on too, as I'm sure you are with this wonderful show.
We are growing nationally, but go on,
good,
Patrick.
Yeah, good. Yeah, you have a feeling, and I would take the Caltrain south, and my heart would just kind of hurt. And there's not many times where my heart has just hurt or my soul hurt, but it did going to work. And finally, my wife kind of met some of the team, and I think just felt like I could do better. And it was kind of like she held up the mirror finally, and I was like, okay, it is time. But yeah, if anybody is having those kind of feelings where, it's just they're cringing to go into the office or to work on a project, it's probably a very late sign that you need to move on. But that was at least mine.
Well, then why at that point start another company? Why not go to corporate America and get a nice steady paycheck?
I think my in-laws would appreciate that. I think that's what every good husband should do. But I'm addicted to starting businesses at this point. I'm just too antsy for that, and I like solving problems and getting my hands dirty. So luckily, by that point, I've been supporting myself through the businesses that I've created at least. So I'm confident in my ability to do that. I'm always confident that I could, get a corporate job and do a side hustle if needed. But I'm not one of those people that could work a corporate job and then come home at 5 or 6 o'clock and do something else. My creative brain would be used up by that point. So, yeah, it's anybody that has known me, I'm sure knew Pat's not going to be, getting a corporate job. He's jumping into something else.
And then with your company right now, what do you see the next milestones or growth over the next 6 months, year? What are you going to be working to project yourself forward? What do you see there?
It's a good question. So we're in 27 markets across the U.S. We're mostly doing airport parking, and we have some cruise parking as well. It works very similar to people flying out of an airport, but it's just taking a ship out of a cruise port. This isn't public yet, but it is exciting. So we're getting into city parking. So we're going to be launching a couple markets here. I won't tell you what markets, but at SFO we have $12.99 a day parking, where it could be easily $18 to $50 a day. In Oakland we have $6.50 a day compared to $10, $20, $30. Denver $4 a day. We're always the cheapest in a market, right? So SF prices around here per day, they're like $10, $20, $30. As an example, we're going to be launching San Francisco at like $5 whenever we come around to SF. $5 a day.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So you're basically going to take the market.
I think we're going to take a good chunk of the market, and we have a particular user base. We're geared towards vacation and leisure travelers that are price sensitive, right? So if you're traveling for business, you don't want to use our service because you don't even know where you're parking. You want to park at Anza Parking or park at Sky Park and just know you're parking there, or park at the airport. But if you're traveling with your wife, if you're traveling with your family, and you're budgeting, or maybe you want to upgrade your hotel room and you don't care where you park, that's kind of where we play in. So we'll take a good part of the market, but it's specifically towards these vacation and leisure travelers, and that's how we're able to keep it a win-win as well. If we were targeting commuters in San Francisco that are coming in every day at $5 a day, I don't think we'd have as many partners. But for leisure and vacation travelers, people visiting SF for a week, they're happy to take those clients.
And to find out more information on Noson and other companies here in Silicon Valley in the startup ecosystem, and for the people that work with them, visit SiliconValleySuccesses.com. Join our Facebook group. Follow us on LinkedIn as well, where we provide information daily on some exciting things that are happening here in Silicon Valley. And Patrick, with this massive growth that's been happening, how do you expand your team or expand the platform? What do you look at to grow with the company?
It's a good question. And, we're pretty much bootstrapped, self-funded. Brett did put in some money. I put in some money. We have small investments. And so I think it's different, right? There's the startup world where you're taking ideally venture capital or seed money, and you have a small run rate, right? Maybe a couple months, maybe 6 months, but you're always raising money, you're always growing. For us, it is nice to be in a place where we're not pressured by that. So we are trying to grow as organically as possible since we are self-funded. So for me, it's really just getting to a point where we need to hire more people. We have a lot of contractors throughout the world. We have people in the Philippines and Brazil. We have a local team, but we all kind of work from home. So once the load is too much and we can afford to reinvest in a new position, then we'll hire somebody. Like right now, we're looking at a front-end engineer because our lead engineer is just swamped with work. The backlog's getting too big. So we kind of wait for these things to happen, and then we see if we can reduce the workload, if we can just reduce the task needed or automate something. And then if we can't do that, and once we do reduce it down, we still need another person, that's whenever we finally hire.
That's interesting, the part that you mentioned, automate. So you're actually leveraging a lot of tools. So I have no idea the number of people on your team, but for how many markets did you say? 26, 27 markets?
Yep.
In my mind, you have several hundred people on your team, which I'm guessing in reality might be a lot less than that.
It is, yeah. So we're, if you took everybody's time and tried to equal it out to full time, it might be like 6 or 7, but we have like 10 to 15 people working different schedules and contractors all around the world.
How would you recommend startups finding these contractors to help them in this expansion process?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think there's 2 things, right? If you're doing a startup and you're looking for investment, local is probably good, and using local means are great. So that's LinkedIn. AngelList is also awesome, and then your normal websites like Zillow or whatever else. If you want contractors, my favorite is Upwork. I think that's where we've found a good amount of contractors. I'm a non-technical founder, right? So if anybody else is non-technical that is watching this, that's a little bit different too. You want to have a CTO that's an advisor to your company, and you really want to hire engineers with hopefully that are friends with somebody or you're connected somehow. Using a Upwork could be helpful too, but especially if you're non-technical, I think it's always good to try to hire through friends or something else.
So if you're non-technical, kind of tell me, for the people at home that are thinking all startups are one programmer sitting there, what do you mean by non-technical, and what skills does that person normally bring to the team?
So what I mean by non-technical is I'm not writing the code myself. I can have conversations about code and how it all works together. I've definitely created websites, but I'm always using some other tools that are out there. So what I mean by technical is you can build an app or a website or a web app, as we call them, from the ground up and from scratch. And then what was the second question?
I don't think there was a second question.
Cool.
But Patrick, tell me more about the life of a startup founder. How much of it is glory? How much of it is just grunt hard work?
I think, at least for me, I'm kind of always in the grunt hard work stages. I'm pretty hard on myself and on the company, and always kind of looking at how we can improve things in a fun way. It's fun for me to improve things. It's fun for me to take our Net Promoter Score, which is our rating across the board. We ask people, from 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend our company? It's fun for me to take that score from a 7 or an 8 out of 10 to a 9 out of 10. So typically, there's not too much glory because I'm just heads down trying to keep solving problems, keep getting the business to be a little bit better. But there's definitely glorious moments when you launch something, or you see something working, or you get an email from an overexcited, really, really happy customer that's just geeking out about what you offer. There's tons of really fun moments, especially when you put your heart and soul into something.
And then going back, you'd mentioned that you and your co-founder are 50-50 partners. Mm-hmm. How was that even talked about in conversation for people out there about to form a startup?
Yeah.
Do they just always split it half and half, or what does the conversation look like for that when you're forming the company? And is it a good idea from the beginning to make a split, or to kind of see how things kind of progress?
It's a good question. Early in my entrepreneurial life, held myself back a lot by asking a lot of questions and reading up on exactly what's right. So I'm now of the philosophy, just jump in, start doing something, you'll figure it all out, right? And that's kind of how this went. Brett initially put in money as an investor, and then he became more like a partner and was spending more time on the project. And then we just had a conversation, and we thought it was fair. But any way you look at it, I think you need to make sure it feels fair for all parties, and the only way to do that is by communicating. So if I think that you being an advisor to the company should be worth maybe 0.5%, but you as a potential advisor think, I typically work for 1% for all companies, and I ended up still giving you 0.5%, and we didn't communicate about it, maybe you wouldn't be giving us your full potential as an advisor. And I think that's employees, if you're dishing out shares. I think that's investors. I think it's partners. eventually, if somebody feels like something isn't fair, it's not going to work out. So I think it's important to just communicate well, however possible.
That's some amazing advice, especially the communication, because I've seen a lot of companies just fall apart because there's no communication between the founders.
Right.
In fact, a while back when I was an investment director for an angel group, I remember seeing on occasion co-founders actually fighting in the room when,
physically.
Well, not physically, but verbally about ideas when a question was asked about, what are you guys going to do if this problem arises? And they would go at it, and clearly they weren't made for each other. And as far as I know, none of those companies I've actually seen go to the next level. But Patrick, since you guys are self-funded right now, is that traditional venture route a path that you're even thinking of taking? Or since you're already past those initial milestones, you're just going to try to grow organically and survive off the revenue you create?
Yeah, that's a good question. And with what we have now, I think would be fine without taking investment, right? We don't need it, and things are growing, and it's fine, and we're reinvesting into the company. With some of the things that we're launching for the future, there is that hockey stick growth potential, where it would be interesting for us as well. I shy away from it a lot because I like to be able to grow things lean and kind of with full creative control. Maybe I'm a control freak. I think I am. But yeah, and I just don't want to have to close down the company because we're getting pressured into turning it into a $500 million or $1 billion opportunity instead of maybe a just $100 million opportunity. And maybe I'm talking myself out of it, but that's at least what I see. So depending on how things grow, and if we, just like with hiring people, if we need more money, if we need it to grow, and that seems like the best option, that's probably when we'd start raising around and go out and looking for funds.
And then for a startup founder out there, or say yourself 5 years ago, what advice would you have given young Patrick?
Oh, Brett calls me young Patrick too, my business partner. He's actually 70 as well, which is great. It's another fun way to play all this in. I mean, he feels like he's 30 as well, but it's cool. Young Patrick. Advice that I'd give to somebody 5 years ago, I mean, everybody's on a different path, right? So I'm not sure if this person has started businesses or not, but I guess this is me 5 years ago. Probably personally to relax and enjoy the moment. I think, like I told you, it's a lot of grit and no glory because I'm always looking at improving things. I think even if I'm like putting a calendar reminder like once a week, like, hey, enjoy what you're doing, that would probably be something I'd say, to enjoy the journey. It's here I am 5 years later. Things are still going well. Things are exciting. No need to get so stressed out about it. And it was a fun adventure, so I would tell myself to enjoy it more. And
then, I mean, Patrick, you're a new father. How has that impacted your life as a founder of a startup? Because, I mean, startups, that's a 9 to 9, 7 days a week job for most people. How do you balance that with the newborn?
Yeah, so it's tough. There's a lot of things, right? Number one, Noson and OnAirParking are definitely a baby to me in a sense. But, you have a real baby and your priorities change in a sense. The business is still, a huge priority of mine. But if my daughter's sick and needs her dad, I'd very much so prioritize her over the company. If my daughter's sick and needs her dad and my idol Richard Branson is like right there and I could talk to him, I would still take care of my daughter. This is just my new priorities. And sometimes it's tough, right? Being an entrepreneur, and I've had to work it out of the way that my brain's wired. But that being said too, this is another reason why it's so nice for me to have this lean company that's just so lean in a sense that we're all working from home. It's offered me flexibility. And one thing I decided to do was to take Fridays off and just spend that as a dedicated day to my daughter. And so on Fridays, I try not to check work email. I try to just fully give her attention and just watch her and bond with her, right? And what's cool is I've found that actually benefits the company. With a little time off, It lets me be creative, and it's helped me delegate more tasks that I was keeping on, which I'm not a good delegator, so that's really helped. But yeah, it's juggling, but I don't know. I think there's this thing that you can give parents like 100 tasks to do and they'll figure it out. I think I've been just better at organizing things because I need to. So it's been good. It's been fun.
So over the course of this interview, we've talked about finding the mentor, finding that co-founder, knowing when it's the right time to leave a company, when you feel that anxiety, that pain inside, and maybe your wife telling you, you can do better. We've talked about going to trade shows and actually getting yourself out there. The importance of a lean company and how you can outsource work and find these contractors on Upwork and other different platforms. We've also talked about how opportunities arrive when there's new technology in the market and how you can take advantage of it and how to have that conversation and be open, whereas someone that's holding everything in may not see all the opportunities. Patrick, what did we not talk about that you think would be very valuable to a founder out there?
Yeah, I think it's kind of what you were saying at the end about finding opportunities, right? A big part of the product that we came up with was having conversations like this for hours in person or over the phone or however possible with potential partners for us, right? These airport parking facilities that would work with. And just it's the communication thing again, just getting into the weeds about what their problems are and offering solutions and just brainstorming and eventually coming up with something. I think a lot of times we see a problem or an opportunity and we're just working on them ourselves as entrepreneurs on paper and we think our ideas are great, and then here we are 6 months later and we launch something and it kind of just fails. It's important to get feedback as soon as possible. I love the concept of an MVP, a minimum viable product, right? So getting something out there as quickly as possible and letting your potential user base talk to you. We hold ourselves back as entrepreneurs. A lot of times people aren't calling, they're not making a cold call to a potential client to even see if somebody would be interested in something, right? So it's just getting out there, doing things. And sometimes you have to ask yourself hard questions and make yourself do hard things to really prove the concept.
And Patrick, what is the best way for someone at home to reach you and find out more about OnAirParking?
Cool. I'm always looking for more Twitter followers, so they could follow me on Twitter, PMM, like Penguin Monkey Monkey, 621. And the website is OnAirParking.com. Love for them to come check out the website. But, through Twitter, I'll give out my email address. Happy to help any way I can.
Patrick, thank you for your time this week. And everyone at home, please join us next week on Silicon Valley Successes, where we'll bring you another amazing person to help you access your dream in Silicon Valley. All right, take care, guys.
Thank you from all of us at Silicon Valley Successes. We hope you found the information presented today useful in your path to success. For further information on accessing the resources in Silicon Valley, you may visit us on the web at siliconvalleysuccesses.com, on Facebook, and YouTube. Thank you. And remember, we want to help you in your journey to become the next success.